more than just like 1 hour of your life. Fitness is a very deeper thing. We have 24 hours in a day, and fitness is only 1 hour. There's so many other important things that happen the rest of your day. And we like to host these events to educate, support, and connect our community with trustworthy, local, awesome, amazing, badass women. And resources for you guys. There's so much information out there, and it's hard to know what is actually helpful, what's right and wrong. My goal with these speaker series is to give you access to experts that you can turn to and ask questions and feel empowered in your own health journey. If you're curious about the wildfire community here, I'd love to talk with you at the end of this. If it's just a conversation, if it's help with lifestyle practices, if it's help with fitness, we do it all here inside and outside the gym. We're going to play a quick video here, and then I'm going to introduce our first speaker. For a little inspiration.
This woman is going to put all of our workout routines to shame. She's 100 years old and she can hold a 3-minute plank.
While Larry Fox Live's Jody Goldberg introduces us to Jerry Leo and her secret for staying in such great shape.
Jerry Leo has been working out for so long, she could probably teach the class.
4, 3.
The Long Island native is the true definition of forever young.
April 11, 1925.
You heard it right. At the ripe age of 100, she's proof age is just a number.
I feel terrific.
While the centenarian still has a flip phone, she's mobile. Jerry just got her driver's license, celebrating her birthday here at the Great South Bay YMCA.
All the way up, halfway down. 1.
Jerry proves just get up every day, keep moving.
1 more.
She doesn't think there's anything spectacular about what she does. She thinks this is how it should be.
Jerry can curl and crunch, but her claim to fame, holding a plank for 3 minutes.
When you have a strong core, it takes care of every other exercise or whatever.
And make no mistake about it, a plank is no easy feat, but Jerry, you make it look very easy.
You can do it even at 100. Don't give up.
She's not huffing and puffing. Take my word for it.
Core, 7.
Family genes work in her favor. She eats healthy, sometimes even standing up. And she tells us she only indulges on occasion.
I do love cake.
Jerry with 2 daughters, 3 grandchildren, and a great-grandchild on the way. Shares this message with the next generation.
Get off the couch.
While Becky has a great life, Jerry's most proud of the impact she's had on the lives of others.
They tell me that I'm inspiring other people. If I'm doing that, that makes me very happy.
Inspiring others and staying strong. That's the core of her mission. On Long Island, Jody Goldberg, Fox 5 News.
My gosh, she's unreal.
Now we're all going to do 3-minute planks.
Alrighty, everybody. Our first speaker tonight in the panel is going to be Devin. Devin is a master restorative wellness practitioner, functional nutritionist, and founder of Peak Athlete Nutrition. She's a former U.S. ski team athlete. Devin now specializes in gut and hormone health, helping clients restore energy, digestion, and confidence through her Peak method. Her mission is to help people feel strong and resilient for the mountains we live to love.
Thank you everyone for showing up tonight. It is so inspiring to just see this community show up to talk about health and longevity and living well in our later life. We all want to be Jerry Leo. And we really live here in Teton Valley because we like to live life to the fullest. And our health is really dependent on that. I think we've all experienced injuries and health setbacks and different complications that take us away from doing what we love to do. And not only does our health suffer, our quality of life suffers, our emotional well-being, our physical strength, everything really starts to take a hit. And so that's what we're rooted in today, is really trying to learn some key tips and strategies to optimize our overall health. So within the conversation of longevity, Dr. Peter Attia, kind of forerunner on this topic, he kind of divides it into two buckets, lifespan and health span. And with lifespan, he talks about it's really just adding years to your life. So a show of hands, who just is dying to be a centenarian, live over 100, regardless of health? Regardless. Just want to wear that like a badge of pride, right? Not a ton of you though, so I'm hoping we get more on the next one. But yeah, what is a life living past years where we don't have quality of health, where we don't have cognitive function, where we don't have community and connection, right? And emotional wellness. So how about another show of hands? Who is interested in learning how to improve the quality of those years, not just extending those years of life? Let's see. Yes. Hopefully, yes, most of you. So we're really aligned in this goal. My goal is to not to simply live longer, but to really improve the quality of those years. I want better cognitive function. I want stronger physical health, absolutely, and I want vibrant emotional health. And I think we all can strive to do that. I want to be skiing and biking and hiking mountains late in life. I want to be riding my bike to girlfriends' houses for dinner, and a lot of you in this room live your life in that way and really inspire me. So you let me know what is possible, and I hope we all can kind of feed off that energy tonight too, because you're doing it. So let's take a second. I think sometimes turning a little bit of pain into purpose can be really helpful. So I want to take a second, maybe close our eyes, and let's just think about a parent, a grandparent, a friend, a loved one, someone near and dear to us that is not aging well. Maybe they don't have their mental health, their physical or emotional health. Let's think about that. Think about that person, picture them. We all are living with someone like that in our lives, right? Now, I want us to visualize the best version of you 10, 20 years from now. If you could really have it all, let's explore that right now. From quality of health, quality of life, you're seeing a vibrant, strong, and capable version of you. Let's just pause there. I see some body language change. I see some smiles. That's possible. It's absolutely possible. And so I think the most powerful takeaway that all of us up here on the panel and our discussion tonight is to just empower you that tonight take one key thing away that moves you in that direction. Because that quality of life, that health span that you're striving for is firmly in your hands, but you have to be an active participant. So that's going to be really, really important. Find that nugget that really resonates and go with that, because it can be overwhelming. We can try to do all the things. We're going to talk about a lot of different pillars and buckets to our longevity and health span tonight. And the last thing we want is for you to leave here feeling overwhelmed and kind of stagnant in just taking that one initiative forward on your health, right? Yes, we have genetics at play, but really epigenetics is going to influence how our genes are going to play, how our genes are expressed, and taking care of all these pieces, our physical, our mental, and emotional health, nutrition, is going to be a big part of that. So let's get into it. As Lacey said, I am Devin Delaney, for those who don't know me. I'm the owner of my own virtual functional health and nutrition practice called Peak Athlete Nutrition. It really specializes in digestive health and gut health, and through that I see a lot of hormone imbalance. I see a lot of metabolic dysfunction, a lot of autoimmunity, and kind of complex and chronic diseases. And so what I wanted to spend just a little time tonight on, and hopefully we'll get into the nitty-gritty in our Q&A, is really how I think that focusing on our digestive health and our gut health is a foundational pillar to this longevity piece. Because when we are struggling in that arena and we're not able to absorb our nutrients and our food, we are creating inflammation, we are creating metabolic dysfunction, we are creating hormone dysregulation, depression, and so on and so forth. So it really can be a foundational piece for us to focus on. So let's get into it. Poor gut health, it is endemic. Over 60% of Americans have some kind of GI dysfunction or disease. Acid reflux, indigestion, bloating, gas, diarrhea, etc., etc. It's a big, big deal. A lot of people are struggling. Autoimmunity is on the rise. Our gut is tied to so many different organ systems, and so it really goes beyond just GI distress. Those symptoms can be giving us clues that something else is not working. It can impact our metabolism, our inflammation, and responses to our brain. That gut-brain connection is huge. So for me, I see a lot of clients where the gut goes first, okay? It's really gonna be the first place that our body is talking to us from a symptomatic standpoint. So symptoms are really a way that your body is trying to communicate with you. So if we can learn to listen to those symptoms, understand what the body is trying to communicate, instead of just brush them off. You know, a lot of us are kind of that type A driven, go, 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 just power through, push on, and that was me. And your body will just kind of present another symptom and get a little louder and get a little louder, and then really start screaming. And sometimes we see things, we see symptoms show up in various systems in the body. So we can see cognitive symptoms, we can see GI symptoms, we can see hormone symptoms, we can see skin, so on and so forth. So the gut is really first, and we need to lean in and listen to those symptoms, okay? So one way that I do that, I want to kind of skim through this pretty quickly, but I focus on the foundations at first, and this is a questionnaire that I do that is all about symptoms. It's called a symptom burden graph. And when I first meet with a client, we are diving into health history, diet, nutrients, sleep, stress, movement. They answer all these questions, and then it gets put on a graph. And we can really see where things are out of balance. So these are some digestion, upper GI, liver and gallbladder, then we're moving into large intestine, then we're moving into fatty acids. There's some hormones, thyroid, female reproductive, cardiovascular here. So you can see that when our digestion and absorption is struggling, we have issues from a hormonal standpoint, from a cardiovascular health standpoint, so on and so forth, immune standpoint. So I really spend time with the symptoms because they can give us such important clues. And this is the bulk of where I'm going to spend time with our few minutes tonight because we have a lot of speakers and things to get through. But I focus on digestion as a north to south process. It is truly top down. If things are not working at the top, they are not going to be working well further down. So if you are having troubles with constipation or loose stools or kind of those bowel type symptoms, we have to look up north to see what might be going on. So thinking about that for yourself, I see a lot of clients who are trying to DIY lower GI symptoms, and if we go right to trying to ease constipation, for example, and not thinking about why are we constipated, could there be an issue further up north, we're really not leaning into those symptoms and doing a root cause approach. We're just kind of sticking Band-Aids on things. So really important, this north to south process. And so how can we, all of us, take away some keys on supporting this north to south process? So in the brain is where digestion starts, not in the stomach, right? And so if we think about how the brain plays a role, it's that stress response and that gut-brain connection piece. So I see far too many people kind of multitasking and eating, trying to work and eat, trying to drive and eat, all the things. We don't make time for meals anymore. To sit down and really pay attention, to smell our food, to look at it, to have our mouth start to produce saliva, right? We skip that process, and if we just go right to putting food in our mouth, we are missing those necessary gastric juices to break down our food properly, because the brain isn't recognizing that it's getting ready to digest. So it really starts in the brain. If we are struggling with digestion, think about how you're eating meals. One tip is to really practice mindful eating, to sit down, to look at your food, to chew it, I'd say chew your food till it's applesauce is kind of a take-home piece of homework that I talk to my clients about. And it's so uncomfortable. I recommend everyone try it. You will want to swallow it after 2.5 chews, but try to go to 20 or 30, right? It is crazy. So it really is good, free feedback for you to support your digestion and support that north to south process. And digestion starts in the brain. Once the brain starts to release that salivary amylase, we're chewing, we swallow that bolus and it goes to the stomach. This is the next piece, is kind of like this middle part of the digestive process. So in the stomach, we now start the chemical breakdown of our food. It's like a washing machine, and hydrochloric acid, HCl, and pepsin are the two key parts of that process. And they're swirling around with our food like a washing machine, And so when we don't have enough stomach acid, things can really start to go wrong. Food can start to come up, and we have heartburn, acid reflux, right? It comes up in the esophagus because it can't go further down. Or we see it sit in the stomach, and things kind of sit like a brick, and really can start to ferment and create some issues. So supporting the body with adequate stomach acid, HCl, is a really key piece that I work with my clients on. So we'll spend time on figuring out your exact kind of needs, your HCl needs, because it's very bio-individual. Incorporating things like apple cider vinegar before meals and with meals can be really, really helpful in supporting that stomach digestion process. Then the contents move into the upper part of the small intestine, and this is where we get bile released and different pancreatic enzymes to further break down our food. So once that takes place, it moves into the small intestine where the majority of our nutrients are absorbed. I see a lot of issues here with undigested food in our stool, so starting to pay attention to your poop is another really key piece that I work with my clients on and that all of us can do at home. My first few clients, first few sessions, I'll talk to them, and they just have no idea. They kind of get embarrassed and ask me about their poop quality. Does it sink? Does it float? Is it yellow? Is it brown? Does it have food in it? They're like, oh my God. And by the end, they're like sending me pictures and we're cheering. We're cheering over solid bowel movements. And I know Kelly knows how important that is. She's going to talk about the importance of poop in a little bit. So we're all here. Everybody poops, right? But some things you can think about that I want to support you with. Again, if you have undigested food in your stool and you're bloating, I really want you to think about your pancreatic function and that enzyme output. They can be really clear signs that you're having poor enzyme output there. If your stools are floating or shiny or greasy, kind of in the toilet, or they're yellow or clay colored, those can be signs of poor fat digestion, poor bile function, and things like that. So we really want to think about liver, gallbladder, pancreas, all those things working. Thinking about supporting that process with enzymes if you need. Digestive enzymes can be really healthy and helpful for people. Adding in bile and supporting the liver. I love bitter foods like arugula and things like that before meals can be really, really helpful, or digestive bitters in some water. Really, really helpful there. So thinking about clues from what's in the toilet, in your poop, and how we can optimize that middle part of the digestive process is huge. The next piece, I'm not even sure on the slides okay, kind of got ahead of myself, but some signs of low stomach acid. Can take a second to read those, but the heartburn, the indigestion, bloating and distension is really, really common. Feeling like you have food sensitivities, but usually that's a little further down in the small intestine. Weak peeling and cracked fingernails is a big one. Hydrochloric acid is so important for protein digestion. We're going to talk about tonight the importance of protein. But as we age, we need more protein. However, as we age, we produce less hydrochloric acid, less gastric juices and enzymes. And so optimizing this digestion process so that we can handle adequate protein for all of the reasons we'll talk about for healthy aging, longevity, structure, bone mass, metabolism. Really, really key here with that digestion connection, okay? Some ways I can see this on a GI map, I just want to put this into data for you, but low stomach acid can also be a result of Helicobacter pylori. H. pylori is an infection in the stomach, and it acts on our parietal cells in the stomach to stop making stomach acid because it likes a more alkaline environment. It wants our stomach to be alkaline, and we don't to digest our food. Different digestive dysfunction, bacterial overgrowths. So usually when we support the stress, eating in our brain, chewing our food, and adequate digestive enzymes and stomach acid, we can really make an impact on this dysbiosis and overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria. We also are, HCl is more protective for foodborne illnesses. So if you're traveling or something and you're, want to protect yourself from like food sickness, right? Food poisoning, sorry, that's a really important one. It also shows up like this. Elastase 1 is a marker of that pancreatic enzyme output. So this is really low pancreatic enzyme output. We are not digesting our food very well. If we are not digesting well, we are not absorbing well. And over time, this really becomes chronic nutrient deficiencies. This becomes inflammation. This becomes malabsorption. This really turns into a cascade of health issues that we want to pay attention to. The immune system goes haywire because our food, undigested food, is able to kind of leak into that bloodstream. So we can see that with secretory IgA. This is when clients are like, I feel like I am just getting more and more sensitive to every single food, and their list is whittling down to 8, 10 foods. That's not what we want. So we really want to support the immune system and immune response. Zonulin is a marker of that intestinal permeability, that leaky gut. This zonulin is through the roof, right? So we're not absorbing. Our gut is leaky. Food is leaking into the bloodstream and causing immune chaos, which can show up as a host of different things. Last but not least, I just want to spend a little time on fiber. So this is our commensal keystone bacteria, and I think fiber and plant diversity in health span, longevity, menopause, all the things, metabolic health is so, so important. So this is just a fraction of some of our commensal keystone bacteria and why we want to eat a high fiber diet, a plant-rich diet, a diverse diet, lots of colors. Because we can see really low levels in certain keystone commensal species. And when they are low, we lose that kind of barrier function and that immune function and really can start to see, I always talk about it as a gut garden, we can really start to see weeds start to take over the flowers and see this imbalance that drives further metabolic dysfunction and inflammation in the body. This phyla make up kind of the majority of our gut microbiome, I would say, so this gives us a really good insight into what are things looking like as a whole. And when we have this imbalance in Firmicutes and Bacteroidetes, we can see that we extract more energy from our food. So people struggling with weight, obesity, things like that, I'm really looking at this Firmicutes Bacteroidetes ratio. And then in general, just seeing, like I would just be saying, that is a really insufficient flower garden. The weeds are gonna start to take over, right? So with fiber, there are a lot of different types. Things that are great for these commensals are polyphenol-rich foods, green tea, nuts, seeds, pomegranates, berries. Those kind of like purpley, dark pigmented foods are really fantastic. Both soluble and insoluble fiber so that it doesn't digest or get absorbed in the small intestine. It makes our way to the large intestine and can really feed these guys. Really, really important there. If we had to give ballpark, I go back and forth between grams and just like a plate concept. Some people are visual learners, some people are not. So I really like to strive for the most basic, it's 2, 3, 4. So 2 colors at breakfast, 3 at lunch, maybe 4 at dinner. You could also break that down a little bit, 1, 2, 3. Try to get 1 color at breakfast, 2 at lunch, 3 at dinner. If you're making that plate, you could think about half your plate being a variety of different colors for that plant diversity. And then if you're thinking about grams, we want to start slow if you're not used to a lot of fiber, because that can create a lot of issues downstream with the bowels. So start really slow, but I would say 25 to 35 grams is a great place to start and see how you feel. But really, I like to think about just getting color, making your plates look beautiful, enjoy that process of variety. We are in such this like diet culture dogma of restriction and less, And when it comes to fiber and gut health, it is like, what can we add to our plates? We're not talking about what can we take away, but let's really focus on all the things we can add. It is super hard to get our protein needs and all of our fiber and healthy fat needs throughout the day. And so really striving for what can you add to your plate and make sure you're digesting and absorbing that is key. All right? Thank you. And Lacey's going to introduce them. If anyone wants to just take out their phone and get a link to a page to book a discovery call with me, I just want to offer that to you tonight. I do have a few cards, but this might be the easiest, so I'll let you take a minute to do that while we switch over presenters. Sarah.
Okay, I'm gonna let everybody do that.
You did so good.
In sustainable wellness by nurturing both the mind and body through connection, compassion, and rest.
That sounds like pretty lofty. I was thinking about okay, why is a mental health person in a gym talking about longevity with all these other very qualified athletic people? But I love that I'm going after Devin because honestly, a lot of our mental health actually starts in our gut, and our gut health is a huge component. And so physical health and mental health, we like to say at the coalition, we all have mental health. You might not have a mental health condition, and we've confused the two, right? So every one of you is walking into this room with mental health that needs to be attended to so that you can have the life that you want and have the quality of life that you want. That doesn't mean that all of you have a mental health condition. So from the outset, let's just acknowledge and name that the mental health world has done a really bad job about talking about the differences of those two things. And I had a supervisor one time that was like, the only person you owe anything to, Sarah, is your future self. And so I want to use that framework about what are you doing today to set future you up for a life that's worth living. So that's part of the reason why I'm here.
Woo! Yes, Sarah! Ow!
And because I am a counselor and I work at the coalition, we start every gathering with this because feelings don't have to be hard to talk about. They're just as easy to talk about how much you lifted as how much you are feeling internally. And so if you ever are like, well, I don't really want to tell somebody that I'm having a hard day, you can just use 1 to 9 dog, or 1 to 9 cat, or sunset, or snowstorm, or I did a presentation earlier in the week and it was all snowmen. Okay, so this doesn't have to be scary. And if you want to be really brave, you can just say out loud right now, where are you from 1 to 9 dog?
That's awesome. I'm definitely not. Is 9 happy? I can't see that far. I can't tell. I can't move my hand. I can't tell.
I mean, just looking at Kelly, that makes me like a 9.
I'm glad. That's my goal.
So I'm from the South originally, y'all. I don't know if you can tell. I moved here in 2011 because, shocking as it might seem, I was a yoga instructor. And I lived in the back of the yoga studio, which is now a glass shop behind the wolf. And I looked and presented very differently than I do how many ever years, somebody do the math on that, right? And so my health journey has been very fraught over my years living in Teton Valley. I've had 5 major abdominal surgeries, and I was put in surgical menopause when I was 37. So what I can do, this girl, right, is very different than the girl that's standing up in front of you. And so It may be a long term, it may be short term, but we are all going to, you might get diagnosed, you might not. But we're all, most of us, half of us, right, are gonna have some sort of issue with our mental well-being at some point in time. This is particularly true in what we call the suicide belt, which is a really unfortunate name, but all the Intermountain West states, we really struggle with mental health. Since I have taken over at the coalition, we have actually risen. We used to be 6th, now we're 4th. We've fallen, we've actually gained some spots here. We used to be 50th, we're 48th. But like mental health is something that's happening in our community. We're also aging. Like this is a really interesting number to me. Like 1 in 6 people are gonna be over 60 by the time it's 2030. So we need to talk about how we have really healthy lives, because I don't know about y'all, but like I'm not getting any younger, right? Like we're not getting younger. And we all live in context, right? And so in like your mental health is not an individual thing, which is another thing that our there's stigma around, well, my mental health is just me and it's an individual problem. But you all exist in like a family network, a community, a gym community, a larger like work community. There's social norms, right? What's normal? I never realized I was so Southern until I moved to the West, right? And then all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, I really am Southern. Because like we have different, like where we live, right? We all live in this context. And so if we're talking about our physical health, it's really hard for me personally to separate our mental health, because all of these things impact how we're feeling, how we're thinking, how we're able to perform physically. Any questions or things that are coming up when you think about like the stats or like the context of mental health, or why this counselor is talking to me about my feelings? When this doesn't go well, when we don't take care of how we're feeling mentally, there's some things that can come up. Particularly, and this is the part that a lot of people in Teton Valley don't like me to say, so feel free to change your level of 1 to 9 dog. But when we build a very rigid identity around how our body moves and functions, it can significantly impact our mental health when our body can no longer move and function in that way. This is like just off the top of my head, and I can't like confirm or deny these stats exactly, but if I look at the people that reach out to the coalition because they need help connecting to mental health care, and this is like outside of our free counseling, it's just the people that are like, I just need to see a counselor. A very high percentage of those people are folks that have suffered some sort of physical injury and cannot tolerate and deal with how that has impacted them and their lifestyle. So I picked Simone Biles because, as you know, she's like the poster child for like building an identity around physical health, but then being willing to step back and express some psychological flexibility and pivot to support what she needed emotionally. So just be mindful, right? If your only thing is how your body can move, like your future self, you might need to tell a little bit of a different story in case something happens and you can't move that way anymore. We also compare ourselves to others all the time. It's natural. This is not wrong or bad. This is my best friend, Linda. She lives in New York. She's very fabulous. She clearly has a really amazing life, and we're like BFFs, right? And if I am not taking care of myself mentally, it's really easy for me then to be like, well, I don't live in a flat in New York, and I don't have $1 gazillion, and I don't look as beautiful as Linda, right? So let's just be mindful about like, are we making fair comparisons? Like, is it reality? Like, I mean, Linda is great, but I am clearly not Linda, right? And then we also have bias, right? And as much as I love like the clip about the woman who's 100 and like can do push-ups, and if you don't know Grandma Gatewood's story, it's amazing and you should read it. She was like in her 70s and like hiked the AT like in kids. I'm not even kidding. Like really. And like, I mean, it was like, and with no prep, she basically was like, I hate my husband, he's abusive, I'm leaving, and I'm just gonna go walk this trail with like 0 training. But what we don't, right, so we have this bias around like what's normal or what people are doing, because my Nana is not making the news playing you know, like putting puzzles together in the nursing home, right? But this is making the news, right? So let's check what we're comparing ourselves to and what reality really is. Because if we don't do those things, then what comes up is a lot of stuff that doesn't feel very great. Yeah. Not to like trigger anyone's trauma or anything. So you'll already have tools in your toolbox. You come to a gym, you're part of the community, like you're ahead, like Season Valley is ahead of the game in so many different ways, right? Like if I were teaching this class in the South, I would have to convince people to eat multicolored foods and to like go to the gym, like and like you know, like it's real. Like, can you please not put cheese and butter on every vegetable? So y'all already have some really great tools in your toolbox. So like use the tools that you have. And I want to talk about one very specific tool today. Psychological flexibility, right? It's the ability to stay connected to your values, what's true for you, even if like shit is hitting the fan and life is not turning out the way that you want to. Like your body is not doing what you want it to do. Your poop is not good, right? But you can still take care of it and use psychological flexibility to not get stuck in like rigid thinking or comparison or bias. So how do we do that? I think it's really helpful to know what the stages of change are so that we can give ourselves some grace. So this like little wheel, you guys all had some sort of thought about coming here today, right? Pre-contemplation is the like, I mean, I don't even really think I need to change. Like, I'm not even really thinking about it. Like, it's kind of fine. And then I move from contemplation and I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I do need to do something about this. I do want to feel better, right? So I'm going to come out on a Tuesday night and I'm going to take some action and I'm going to like do something about it. And then I'm going to like maintain that. And then I don't know if y'all know about this, but we're all going to relapse, right? And that's fine. We're going to have times where we don't eat 2, 3, and 4 colors with our meals, right? Or we do indulge. That's okay. It's part of the process. And then we sort of like go back around and around and around. So just being aware of like where you are around a certain habit or a thing that you want to change can lead to some self-compassion, and then you can be like, oh, do I just need to spend some more time thinking about this? Do I need to develop an action plan? Who can help me maintain? Like, man, like I love going to the gym, but I'm getting kind of lonely. Do I need to invite a friend? Like, can I go to the farmer's market with somebody and pick out lots of fruits and vegetables to like put on my plate? Like, how do I like stay in this place of maintenance? And then how do I not beat myself up if I relapse, right? So just knowing that this is a cycle that we all engage in, I think can be really helpful when we're thinking about change and longevity. And then one of my favorite tools is radical acceptance. And that doesn't mean that you condone or accept the bad behavior or you like stay stuck with like your physical functioning if it's not something that you like. But you can't change something unless you radically accept where you are right now in the moment, right? And so just having some awareness that like me accepting it isn't me saying that I like it or I agree with it. It's just the acknowledgement that something needs to be different. And then there are 6 things, according to counselors, that have to do with, this is how we practice psychological flexibility, right? We accept that this is just kind of like the way it is. We recognize that we're not our thoughts, right? So if you can observe and notice that you're thinking, then you're something else, alternative to your thoughts. Even if they're really loud, even if you get stuck in them all the time, but just that process of noticing and observing that like I'm more than my thoughts. I can be present with them. I can chew my food until it like feels like applesauce in my mouth, even though it's like physically painful, right? I can stay with that sensation. I can notice it. I can be present. I can change the story that I'm telling myself about myself in my head. And then this one is always a little hard for people to kind of like, what? Syllabus, context, what does that mean, Sarah? Anna, if I walked over to you and I like chopped off your arm, would you still be Anna?
Yes, I would.
Right? If I like chopped off all your legs, would you still be Anna?
totally would.
So there's like a part of you that is you, no matter what else is going on or happening, right? And that's really important for us to accept, especially if things are not going the way that we want them to go. And so what really matters to you, right? If I chopped off Anna's legs and she can't run anymore, what part of movement does she value that she can connect to and continue doing? And I know you're all like, oh my God, that's terrible. Like,
Anna, do you
what? I don't want to be present with that thought. Right? But I promise, right? Like, there's always something you can do, right? There's always some change you can make. There's always some way you can connect with the part of movement that is important to you. And a really great example of that is Alice Wong. And if you don't know who she is, she's incredible, right? I mean, she is somebody who has she just died recently, she's been on the news, but used her life for so much good, right? And experiences movement and longevity in a completely different way than most of us do, right? Because she knows what she values and what's important to her, and she takes small committed actions to see those things through, even if it looks different than what she sort of imagined it was going to be. So we want to move from sort of this, right? Well, if I can't move, or I can't have the quality of life, or I get injured, or I get hurt, or I can't, oh man, I like skip the gym, or like I had like whatever it is, like I got pregnant and then I had to have 27 surgeries and my movement is different. Like, can I think about it as this, right? I'm evolving, I have new strengths, like there are other things that I can do. I can experience movement and joy and pleasure in different ways that I can, like, and it doesn't have to be wrong or bad that change is happening. So how do you build an identity that includes more than just how you're sort of like moving your body, that includes hobbies, passions, like the part of movement that you enjoy? Like if you have an injury, can you find the thing that's like, man, I really love to go ski, but I can't quite ski the way that I used to, but I love the community of that. Okay, well then can you get people together and go for a walk, right? There's always choices that you can make to find those pieces that you want to hang on to. How do you practice gentleness, right? That there are going to be different seasons in your life where you're going to be able to do things well. You might have to let go of some things, and then new things can spring up. How do we come up with like curiosity, right? And just being curious about what we can do, what might need to shift, what might need to change. And let those things be evolving and adaptive as we grow older. We're not good at practice. Because I realize that, like, you know, there are like 2 other people that still need to talk. But I just encourage you to think about, like, what are you doing now? What are the practices you have in place? What are the people that you have in place? What is the story that you tell yourself right now that's setting your future self up really well? To, you know, and we don't, like, right? I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe you're like a lucky one and you stay healthy and well for the rest of your life in Teton Valley. I wish that for everybody, but that's like not likely, right? I mean, I used to joke that like if you live here long enough, you're going to have something replaced, right? Like, you know, and so like chances are you're going to have some injury that's going to impact how you're moving. And so how do you start telling yourself a different story, practicing psychological flexibility as you age so that you can be adaptable to whatever shows up in your life?
Yes, Sarah! Woo!
Probably the
Do you feel safe sitting next to her?
I know.
I don't know if I feel safe with you next to her.
She has
They think she can amputate today.
yeah.
I know.
Where did she?
Jeez, she's gonna cut off your arm and
I see now.
Yes, Sarah. Ow!
Alrighty, guys. Next up, we have Anna Gunderson. Anna's a board-certified physician's assistant with more than 13 years in family medicine at Teton Valley Hospital. She's trained in both conventional and functional medicine. She's known for blending science, curiosity, and holistic insights to help patients uncover root causes and build lasting wellness. She's also a dedicated mom of 2 and a lifelong learner and has exciting news to come.
I think it's really exciting. I think you guys do too. As you can see, there is this Gunderson Integrative Medicine, my new business. I will be leaving Teton Valley Hospital at the end of December, and I will be staying on with them for PRN work, maybe for a little while. Not sure. Hopefully this takes off, and I don't have to keep doing that. But I just want to keep my foot in the door with collaboration with the wonderful providers there. It's been amazing to work for Teton Valley Hospital, but I really want to do functional medicine, and it's more the confines of Western medicine style, the clinic practice, just the way it's set up, so this will give me a little more flexibility to go into root cause medicine, deep dive medicine, and spend more time with patients. So check it out. I have some like postcards and stuff over there next to Kelly's amazing, hilarious stickers. But tonight, longevity. Gosh, I love longevity. I actually did not love the idea of longevity for a long time in my life. I kind of thought, like, first of all, I don't want to age, and second of all, I'm not going to live long. Like, my brain's not going. I'm not dealing with that. The more I get to know about science and functional medicine, I'm like, oh, I got this in the bag. I'm going to do this and this, And so we'll talk about just a few of, like, these are going to be quick things. I mean, in the sense that, functional medicine, primary care, it's all the systems, and we have I love the pick tonight. It's like all the systems, because they are all important in longevity. And one cool thing is I'm like, oh, my slides, it's just going to be a repeat. Same thing. Look at that! That is the main thing, is like looking at the length of time we live and the quality of life. And we don't want one without the other, right? We do. I have seen people through long periods of their life. I've seen them go through sickness and illness and cancer and things at times where I just thought, gosh, I think I'd throw in the towel. And you're not going to throw in the towel, right? So things we can work on preventatively, like when we should start investing in this. Right now, today, tonight, you're doing it. You're here. You're investing in it. You can invest anytime. We help our kids invest in it, right? We show them how to eat well. We show them to exercise. We get them to learn how to sleep. But again, going back to the person you can think who's not aging well, take one thing from tonight and help them invest in that one thing, because it will matter. And if they feel good in one way, they're going to be more apt to try another thing. And I have seen people, even in their 80s, who didn't think they were going to walk and maybe started working with a lovely physical therapist who believed in them. Or I've seen people go through massive injuries and worked with a counselor who switched that mind frame, that mindset that they were no longer valuable, and they started to thrive again, right? We all matter, no matter what time we are in our lives. Someone asked, like, just pick the 5 most important things. This is like, seriously, this is what we'll all talk about all the time. You already know this. But just a few things that I put in, some quick hints. If I were to talk to masses, right? Now, we all do individualized approach. Individualized gut restoration, individualized mental health, individualized pelvic floor therapy, individualized functional medicine. So this won't be specific to you, but we all encourage you that if you feel like you need individualized medicine, come see us, right? But if I were to just tell everyone, first of all, Jerry, right? She ate the Mediterranean diet. She talks about it. I looked her up because I was like, man, it's a cool video, but what does she really do? Mediterranean diet is linked to reduce premature death, right? It is a diet that if you have not looked into it, look into it. You just want basic guidelines. 90% of your food should be that. It's going to be rich in phytonutrients. It's going to be lean quality meats. It's going to be excellent fats, mostly from plant-based sources. And it's going to be low in carbohydrates, right? It's going to give you the good carbohydrates. And again, we won't go into the carb thing. But anyway, I did put in here sufficient calories. Yes, eat. But you do need to allow for some fasting. Fasting actually is linked to longevity, all right? I do not recommend everyone go home and fast. I do recommend that you talk to someone who knows how to help you with fasting, that you do it guided, you do it specific for your metabolic needs. But I can't talk about longevity without putting in fasting, because when we fast, we do improve our telomere length, and that is linked to longevity, okay? Exercise, the common question is strength versus cardio. Which one?
Strength.
Both! Do what you love. But they complement each other, right? So you want to do both, right, if you can. Sleep, I'll go into a little more about sleep. A lot of people will say, oh, I eat well, I exercise, all this stuff, and I have bowel movements, every day. But then you ask them about their sleep, and it's okay. 6 hours. I mean, it's good enough. it's just been since I had my kids. It's been really weird since then, like 30 years ago. And it's like 5-6 hours. Now, I don't want to harp too much on sleep, because it can be a source of anxiety for people, because they're like, I'm trying. But I do want to say that it is something that if you are not sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night, that's something you need to go talk to your provider about, or you need to figure out, like, sleep starts when we wake up, right? So it is not something that I put in here, our sleep hygiene stuff, right? Because that's good, again, for the masses. But if you know things like your cortisol levels are high, or you know your digestion isn't good, or maybe you have some low back pain or pelvic pain that wakes you up at night, maybe you're peeing all night, right? You gotta pay attention to what is waking me up, or how do I feel in the day? Like, am I hitting rock bottom at 4 o'clock in the afternoon where I want to sleep in, or circadian rhythms off? We need to look into that. Emotional health, yes, of course Sarah was here tonight. Spirituality, relationships, community. They are so intertwined into our longevity. Look at Jerry, right? Sure, she was at the gym. That was where she found community, right? She was happy with her people. She felt important there. It doesn't have to be the gym, though, right? Although, yes. But it's true, like, community matters so much. I actually put these 3 things in here because those 3 are all important. So tonight you can reflect. Do I have really great relationships? I feel a sense of community, but I don't know if I have any spirituality. I don't think I tap into that at all. It doesn't mean I'm not saying go out and join a religion, but spirituality can just be like, do I open my heart to what's beyond me, right? There can be a lot of connection, and it will deepen your growth with everything else. And then, naturally, avoid toxins like smoking alcohol. Yeah, alcohol-loaded one, but just limited. Okay, so I did pick a few things again, things that I look for, things that I see. A lot of ApoB is a biomarker. I brought this one up because it's directly linked to cardiovascular disease, still the #1 cause of death in the United States for both men and women, right? So got to talk about it. Now, we've always looked at our LDL. It's in the standard lipid panel, probably everyone's had one. The LDL, we'll just put it this way. Almost 50% of people who have heart attacks have normal LDL, right? So it's not the best marker. So we're striving to find better markers. ApoB is really shown to actually be one of our better biomarkers. It's the measure of the actual amount. If you didn't know, LDL is a calculated amount. This is the actual amount of the LDL particles in the blood. And the more small particles you have, means you have a higher ApoB. We'll talk about why. Higher levels of ApoB are directly causative to cardiovascular disease, right? Why? Well, I put a picture up here of a tennis net and a tennis ball. So what I want you to imagine is this tennis net is the inside of our arteries, right? It's the lumen of the arteries. And when a ball the size of a tennis ball hits against that net, what does it do? It just bounces off, right? It just boom, boom, boom. So imagine these beautiful big particles in our bloodstream of cholesterol, because cholesterol is important, we gotta have it. Imagine that popping through your blood vessels, just bouncing, boom, 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 great. Now think about having a golf ball. Now chuck that at that net, what's gonna happen? It's likely gonna penetrate through, right? Now, it's not gonna harm the net, but imagine penetrating through your lumen of your artery. No, you don't want that, that's damage, right? So then that damage actually then is what starts to create inflammation. And what is plaques? Plaque development in arterial lining is a chronic inflammatory process. Once that inflammation gets going, once that damage happens, it's a cascade, it doesn't want to stop. It gets rooted in itself, and we could go into get a whole section on that one, going macrophages and everything, but anyway. But nonetheless, so we don't want this high ApoB, right? And so I encourage you that if you haven't had an ApoB checked, get that checked. Then there are ways to lower it. Again, Mediterranean diet or diet specific to your health. Mainly thinking about reduced carbohydrates and reduced saturated fats. Now that goes a little bit, it doesn't always go the longest way. So oftentimes people do need supplements and pharmacologics, okay? So again, a place where even Peter Attia takes a Western medicine for it. So I also wanted to go into HRT. We are going to have a few great questions on hormone replacement therapy, so we'll go into this a little more deeply. But I did want to mention that actually this amazing recent cohort study showing long-term use of estrogen therapy in postmenopausal women is associated with lower all-cause mortality, meaning that kind of all the things that want to kill us, we had lower risk for it, right? So that's really, and luckily HRT is, this is gonna get studied even more and more. It's a good study, it's not a great study. But in there, they did talk about progesterone. I brought this in just in case there's anyone in this room or anyone who had a friend in this room who's still on medroxyprogesterone, right? There are two different types of progesterone, micronized progesterone, medroxyprogesterone, both used in postmenopausal HRT. Medroxy is the one that is linked to the inflammatory process, the higher cardiovascular risk, the higher breast cancer risk. There isn't sufficient data saying that micronized, that's your bioidentical progesterone, lowers the risk of mortality, but it did not show that it worsened anything, right? So we, at this point, are deeming this very safe, but there needs to be more studies. And then same with testosterone replacement therapy. It did not show, studies have been variable, it didn't show it lowered all-cause mortality. Super physiological levels, so when we get you past what you really should be, are linked to problems. So I don't encourage people to do things like that, but we know that it does improve the quality of life for a lot of people, so in both men and women. And in men, we're coming out with some really great stuff. Feel like the men in the room maybe feel a little left out. There's a huge study that came out a couple of years ago showing that women just got, all right, here, I'll just back up. Women just got, right, the black box label taken off HRT. Woo! Hey, we wanted to take it, not be super scared. But men, there's still black box label. It is being fought to be taken off as well because it actually improves cardiovascular outcomes. So low testosterone is as worrisome as low estrogen in women. Okay, now I'm jumping all over the place because I am a jack of all trades, right? Cell senescence, it would be amiss to talk about longevity and not talk about cell senescence because it is the hallmark of aging, okay? So, this is the loss of the cell's ability to divide and grow. So your cell just kind of goes, yeah, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna stop. Because we actually are like, well, maybe it thinks it's scared it's gonna become cancer, right? Because it's sick, it's mad, it's upset. So you can see, when under oxidative stress, we have our normal cell. Now we're being attacked by the free radicals. That is not a happy cell. It does not want to do anything, right? So this does increase with age, but it also can increase, lots of things. We'll go into how kind of to slow it, and that kind of talks about cause. But obviously smoking, right? But being in a toxic environment, stress, right? Not sleeping well. And anyway, these are all reasons why we can have things like oxidative stress. So one thing I put in here, just because it is a very interesting thing and it's a very important thing to understand why we do have reduced muscle mass as we do age. And the more muscle mass you can keep, actually, we do know that is linked to longevity. So we do develop more senescent cells as we age, but particularly in our muscles. So that is directly contributes to reduced muscle mass. So ways to slow it. Look at that, another branch over, eat the rainbow. Think about however you can, but if each day, even little things matter. What can we put on our plate? Oh my God, if you just sprinkle a little cilantro on something, boom, vitamin C, antioxidants, right? If you can just, those little tiny chopped up red onions that you always say, how am I gonna use those? Well, just eat them somehow, put them on something. Again, it doesn't take a lot, it takes just little bits and you'll keep being able to add those things in. Regular exercise, now very interesting about exercise. Extreme exercise or heavy exercise can lead to oxidative stress, right? When we use ATP, we do have byproducts, and one of them is called reactive oxidative species, right? And those cause oxidative stress. So, with exercise, this is why we want to encourage people to take care of their bodies. It's why sleep will be so important. It's why drinking sufficient amount of water will be important. It's why rest days are important. But regular exercise is way better than worrying about, am I getting too much oxidative stress from too much exercise? But because it is so important we sweat, right? We move the blood flow, we get the lymphatic and the glymphatic and all the good systems that we have going, we get them moving, we get the gut moving. So anyway, it is beyond everything. But, again, my personalized approach sometimes matters because some people do extreme exercise. Sleep, again, we're gonna go back to that, right? A lot of us maybe do or don't know that we do detox during sleep, particularly phase 3 or deep sleep. So if someone tells me, I go to bed, I wake up like 3 hours later, and then I fall asleep, and then I wake up an hour and a half later, they're never getting into stage 3 or deep sleep, right? This is where we use our brain's amazing lymphatic system, which is like the lymph system, but for the brain. Really cool thing, look it up if you like that stuff. It is where we detox most of our free radicals. So if we aren't getting into that deep sleep, we're missing this opportunity. We also release growth hormone. And growth hormone is a very interesting thing coming up. I mean, it's not coming up, it's been studied for a long time, but I think we're gonna see more and more because of our peptide curiosity going on. It's hot and heavy right now. But growth hormone has been linked to longevity, so either our sensitivity to it or our actual levels of growth hormone. And we do release this at night. So again, if we're not getting into those deeper stages of sleep, we're not necessarily releasing that growth hormone and utilizing it. And it is one way that we can, I can guarantee you Jerry has excellent growth hormone sensitivity. Again, that's going to be some genetics in there, but we aren't defined by our genes. We should know about our genes. We'll go into that in a little bit, but we don't have to be our genes. We just need to take care of ourselves so we don't turn bad genes on, right? And we keep good genes flowing. So anyway, peptides. Is anybody watching the world in peptides right now? Anybody really geeking out on peptides? Yeah.
There's
right.
so much right now.
Yeah. Peptides. Everyone in here knows about insulin, right? Insulin was the very first peptide that we came up with in Western medicine. Fabulous peptide, saved at this point, millions of lives, right? It treats type 1 diabetes, really helps out in type 2 diabetes. Then now the biggest peptide that everyone knows about, Ozempic, Mounjaro, right? Those are peptides. They're just chains of amino acids, so they're technically kind of bioidentical, right? We've matched them to what our body would naturally make, and they actually directly communicate with the cell. So there's right now in the world of longevity, there's a lot of peptides coming out, and how we're able to improve growth hormone, how we're able to do all this stuff. So it is definitely a type of medicine that, you know, I don't routinely follow, but I would say when I get into certain situations where I need to maybe really heavily detox someone, we can use things like NAD and NAD+, stuff like that. But the peptides, I think we're gonna get better at them. They're just still in the early stages of studying. So you know, when you buy them, you have to you get them on there. There's no prescription for them. You just get online and they're like, the FDA does not approve this, and then it's kind of like how you felt when you're taking a hormone. You're like, oh, the FDA doesn't approve it. But anyway, so herbs. This is Chinese herbs. You know, they've been doing longevity medicine for tens of thousands of years. There's a lot of data. You can just, I would put that into, NIH, and you'll find so much data on herbs. Metformin, actually, that's also a med that's used to treat type 2 diabetes. It became, now it's called the longevity med. I don't use it that way. But it's an interesting one. It does slow that AMPK pathway. Again, I just love putting in little pathways here and there so you can dork out one day and look at it. But it does lessen the accumulation of our senescent cells. And finally, I had to put a little food in there, quercetin. Yeah, Devin mentioned those rich red vegetables, and then she can probably tell you all the other ones. There's a bazillion of them. I think of like grapes, like quercetin, people think of wine. Yeah. And then I'm like, pomegranate juice. Okay, so this is actually just, I put this in solely because of, did you think of the word?
Oh, selfless context?
Selfless context. Let's just take a moment with some selfless context. You're getting so much information right now, but this is just coming back to remembering that with all this information and all this noise, this is really what matters, right? Let's just look at that beautiful landscape that we get to see every day. We can maybe look at each other. Because in the end, with all the geeky science, this is what matters. All right.
I'm not fancy. Good job. Thank you. So good.
All right. We don't have slides. I don't have slides.
Next up, we have Dr. Kelly. She is a pelvic floor physical therapist and one and only of about 100 PTs worldwide, both board certified in orthopedics and pelvic health. Dr. Kelly is committed to making pelvic health accessible for all, offering both in-person care and impactful online education through the platform at Pelvic Floor.
All right, I've been making slides because I'm here and I'm excited to talk with you guys. So thank you for coming. I'm Rumi. I'm a K-pop demon hunter, and we are here to fight the demon that is not longevity. Yes. So, how much do y'all know about your sweet little pelvic floors? Do you have y'all have one. And what do you think they have to do with longevity? Do you think they have anything to do with longevity? What would you say if I told you that if you had urinary incontinence, which is the fancy name for little dribbles down there, that would increase your all-cause mortality by 300%. Whoa! That it would increase your risk of falls by 200%. That it will increase your risk of admission to a nursing home by 300%. So, urinary incontinence will affect, it is not a normal consequence of aging, but it will affect 8 out of 10 people in this room. And now those 8 out of 10 people will be at that 200 to 300% increased risk of dying, right? Because of all those different things. And this is a longevity talk, so the single most important thing that I can pass on to you is to tell you that incontinence isn't nothing, and it's really easy to fix because it's not a normal consequence of aging. I fix this all the time, and it's not a big deal. So part of me being dressed up like a bad but superhero is because this is about empowering people, but also it's kind of easier to talk about incontinence. Down there with somebody has a purple wig on. Tell me about your pee problems. and it's okay, and this is part of why pelvic floor is such a successful business, is I take my work very seriously, but not myself. So it's a safe place to come and look for information. We're not going to make you feel weird. We know it happens to 8 out of 10 people. The other interesting thing about pee problems is they don't come out of nowhere. You know, Anna mentioned the mom who like, oh, well, I just haven't slept well for 30 years. Incontinence follows back pain in 3/4 to 80% of people. Well, that's strange. Why do you think that might happen? If I am your bladder, hey, I'm so cute, I should be supported primarily by your tummy muscles and your posture, actually, here. And your pelvic floor muscles are like an elevator that should live in a 4-story building, and friends, they should live on the ground floor of that 4-story building. So they have all sorts of capability to go up to the 4th floor throughout the day and back down to the ground floor. But in any stress, the pelvic floor is hardwired to your amygdala, which is your emotional center of your brain. The pelvic floor comes up to protect you. And at the same time it comes up in front to protect you, it also comes up in back. And it says, oh, we are running away from a tiger. We are not demon hunters, we are scared. And we cannot stop to poop while we run away from this tiger. So those pelvic floor muscles come up past the 2nd floor and back, and they send a slow down signal to the colon. And we don't know that this is happening. And guess what? Now my tummy muscles have been inhibited, and my pelvic floor muscles are resting up here, and my bladder's unhappy, and my pelvic floor's tired, and all of a sudden I'm peeing my pants. Or my bladder's all annoyed, and I'm like, it's waking me up at night. And I think that's just normal because I'm getting older. And the worst thing that could happen is you go to a doctor who reinforces that terrible myth, and they say, yes, that is just because you're getting older. Or, here, take this overactive bladder medicine, and they do not inform you of all the potential negative cognitive effects that that has. So, what you need to do to fix that is simply, you didn't know that your pelvic floor was too tight, and so you might have wrongly started to do Kegels. And you might have just tightened. Your bladder says mercy, I can't breathe. And that didn't work. And so then you stopped drinking water. And that didn't work either. And now your brain's dehydrated. So, and you can't poop. And you can't poop! Or have psychological flexibility! There's no flexibility!
And you can't orgasm.
So we have no more call over the quality here. So this is why you
No health span.
No health span. So what we have to do, this is really simple. We take our sweet bladder and we feed it enough water. And it is our body weight in pounds divided by 2 is the base number of fluid ounces that we should be drinking every friggin' day. So I weigh 160 pounds. I need to drink 8 or more. I drank like 0 today. I would say it's bad. I ate very well. I drank 2 glasses of matcha tea and I drank 0 water. I mean, whatever that's how much water I drank. It's terrible. But I drank it. But again, grace and kindness.
Exactly, right?
It's fine.
It's fine.
Today
is tomorrow is a new day.
Tomorrow's a new day. But so that's basic, so that bladder's not going to be all shriveled and angry. So, and then people will say, but no, that's going to make me pee worse. I mean, maybe at first, but it's a part of the whole system, and we have to understand what normative is, okay? And then we need to take the pelvic floor that's strangling your sweet bladder and connect it to your brain to get it down here. So, you all on the end, you're going to see something called cooch ball. And if you grab a cooch ball, you all on the edges, you're going to sit on the cooch ball. And you're going to put it between your middle zone and your back zone. No, you all. Oh, belly should get bigger. And if your sweet pelvic floor were actually on the ground floor, which very few of us will be at this point in the day, but when you breathed in and your belly got bigger, your pelvic floor would go down into the cooch ball, and you breathed out and everything would kind of come back in. Most of us will need to think of inhaling, the belly gets bigger, the pelvic floor goes down. Exhaling, the belly gets smaller, we try to keep the pelvic floor down. Your challenge is to see if you could sit on it for 3 minutes. If it becomes uncomfortable, it's okay, just say, oh, okay, that's interesting, I need to work on this. Take it away and hand it to the next person quietly while we keep discussing. Okay, so this is connecting your brain to the pelvic floor to get that before strangling your bladder. Then the important next step, and this is what all of the sweet influencers, and I know on social media, I understand the limits, but you'll hear people say that the pelvic floor and the deep abs are paired together. And that's just a big load of crap. Because there's nothing similar, like there's no shared innervation at all. There's one similar sensory nerve and that's it, okay? So people that say the abs and the pelvic floor are wired together, they're informed on a study that used surface electrodes on people that didn't know how to separate the pelvic floor from the abs. So sure, they fired together, so people didn't know any better. So once you learn how to calm down the pelvic floor muscles, then your important next challenge is to learn, now that they're down here and they're no longer strangling that frickin' bladder, how can you engage the tummy and the back and the butt without reverting to this overuse of the pelvic floor. In the pelvic floor universe, we call that active abs, relaxed butthole. We all love a relaxed butthole. We'll say, relax your butthole. Lacey might even say that once or twice, and it will literally solve like 99% of your pelvic floor of your amazing pelvis. It's not just one pelvic floor muscle, but there's more than like 7 on each side. This is a boy, this is a girl. They're pretty much the same. There's just one extra hole. So when you're a little embryo, all the parts, they arise from the same embryonic genital tubercle, and lady bits go up, boy bits go down. All the muscles are pretty much the same. And while bits in the front are more related to sexual and pee function, and bits in the back are more related to poop function, they're all connected. And we use the butthole as the cue and cooch ball work because we typically have a little bit more proprioceptive connection, which is a fancy word for position sense. So if you put one hand here, and you close your eyes, and you flip palm up, palm down, and you stop, you know exactly where your hand is in space. And yet, if I asked you to Kegel and relax, you don't really know where the pelvic floor is in space right now, unless you've been working with me. And that's okay. But if you got a little cooch ball, it's a really nice way to start to get to know that. And before cooch balls, the main way that we would do a lot of home programming is you get a pelvic wand that go up in here. And you'd like work on your own vaginal muscles or rectal muscles. And surprisingly, not too many people did that at home. I don't know why. Like, what? But the cooch ball type training, you do it fully clothed. I know a lot of people do it before their workouts. You'll see them at all the gyms in the valley. I'm very proud of that. And everybody has 3 minutes to kind of invest in this. And that is a huge thing that you can do to improve the overall health and mobility. If you're having any pee complaints, this is a huge thing that will fix your problem. It'll fix your shiz, let's say. People always wonder, oh my gosh, it's been too long. I've peed my pants for 30 years. Most clients get better in less than 4 visits, or if it's an online course, within 4 weeks. Because it's simply the time to connect your body. And then with the additional longevity, what Anna said about the sleeping, and Devin was saying about sleeping, and Sarah was saying about sleeping from all of the parts. If you saw me so rudely looking up on the phone, there is a study linking reduced sleep to injury find the exact number, but it's something ridiculous, like 1 night of lessened sleep increases your injury risk by like 30% or something.
And psychosis.
And yeah, it's insane. 1 night of sleep deprivation. And so if your bladder is waking you up to pee, not normal, friends. No, it's not normal. So you've got to get that shit figured out right now, okay? Not okay. Okay, other things. I want you guys, before you leave, to come take a picture of my pelvic floors, and you're gonna teach your friends about them. And I also want you to take a picture of things to make your bowels go faster or slower, depending on what you're dealing with. And essentially, they're just kind of cheat sheets. And some of it's, review. It's drink enough water, eat enough food to make good poops, relax your pelvic floor, have your stress under control. If you tend to be a little bit slower in constitution, we do not want to strain to have a bowel movement because that will cause leaks, and that could cause prolapse over time, and that can cause hemorrhoids, which are not cool. So, put your hands right here. Thank you, friends. You like my Google? I had to Google where Ruby wore all her accoutrements here. Right. Keeping your belly soft. We're going to see if we can find our pelvic floor. Can we do a little Kegel? So ladies, lift your bits up as though you are holding pee-pee in. Gentlemen, lift everything up as though you were going into cold water. Hold it for 3, 2, 1. Now relax everything back down. And hopefully our tummy stays soft. Because our pelvic floor muscles are not right here. Let's try it again. They're actually where our crotch is or where our speedos would be. So, try if we can find the parts that are just what we're seating on. Can we just lift the butthole, my favorite word, the middle parts and the front parts up towards the ceiling again, but keep your tummy soft. Hold it for 3, 2, 1, and then relax it back down. And if we could do it, great. If we couldn't, how curious. And that's the cool part about all of this, is when you go to bed tonight, if you could do it, your brain's going to reinforce that pathway, and if you couldn't, your brain's going to say, let's cross off that pathway, those were the wrong ones, let's try to find a new one tomorrow. The other pathway, hands back here, you're almost done. From this resting position. Okay, if anyone farts, we all get to laugh and I'll say it was me. We're going to try to not push out at our tummy. How can we kind of push down like we were going to try to pass gas, but just from our pelvic parts, not from our tummy, right? Like, so if the Kegel was this way and then we relaxed, could we bear down, which is this downward motion, but not have it come from our tummy? I don't know, fast. It's so hard. And that, you can relax now. And that is in a true perfect function with that pelvic elevator. When they're supposed to rest at the ground floor, they should be able to Kegel to the 4th floor, relax back to the ground floor, and then when we go to the bathroom and sit down, the true relaxation from the ground floor to the sub-basement, which is that very now we all just tried, with the relaxed tummy, that's the cue for the bladder to push the pee out and for the colon to push the pee out. And it's freaking magic. So that's what we do in PT, and if we can all master that, then we are just not only going to have this quality of health years, but we are going to have our full bladder and bowel functions through those, and sexual time functions through those quality of life years. So that's that. Yay!
See who responds from there. Heidi, go ahead.
Anna, I'm asleep. Deep sleep, you said is phase 3, and you know how all our watches measure everything we do? My watch tells me that I go into deep sleep first, and then I have a little bit of light sleep, dream, light sleep, dream, light sleep, dream, all the way until I wake up.
Yeah, so, well, watches are interesting. I'm gonna ask you a personal
That's why
question.
I'm asking you
I
if
am-
that's
yeah.
meaningful at all.
So one question is, do you eat or drink anything, any alcohol or anything before?
Not a couple of hours, because
Okay.
Devin has taught me very well.
Exactly.
A couple hours before I go to bed.
Yeah, so
Unless I'm out with friends, and then that's.
80-20,
yeah. Yeah, you know, technically speaking, we're supposed to go through stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have talked to, there's a woman, Martha, what's her last name, Burkish in Jackson, and I've talked to her about this because I was like, you know, when you talk about the stages of sleep, does everyone follow the same stages of sleep? And she said, no, not everyone does, but technically we should be spending a certain amount of time in each stage of sleep.
Yeah.
And so if you're like looking at your watch and you're saying, okay, I am in deep sleep for a certain period of time, each sleep cycle, I believe, is about 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are in that deep sleep stage, 90 minutes, you're still getting the benefit no matter which way it falls.
Wherever it happens.
Wherever it happens, so.
Because it's very consistent, I mean.
Yeah, you always.
Deep light at first,
Yeah.
and then I start the dream cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the dreams are the best in the morning.
Yeah.
Like if you wake up to pee at 5,
Yeah.
and then you go back to sleep.
Not anymore. Nope.
Oh God, now I got to.
Who knows? Maybe you see her and then you're like, wait a minute, now I.
Heidi, you're just supposed to come work out when you wake up.
That's when they go.
I know, we all have our runs, but yeah, exactly. But if you're hitting all stages,
Yeah.
awesome, right? And everyone, and we always, the literature I've seen is, sleep's still kind of highly debated, but the literature I've seen is that as long as everyone has hit one stage one time at night, that is restorative enough, you know? So if you,
I'm always confused how the watch even knows.
and that's where I'm always like, does the watch really know? You know? But it's consistent for you, and if you're like, no, I hit that pillow and boom, I don't hear anything, yeah, it's probably pretty accurate.
It seems like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is
Good
there
question.
any association with that and taking progesterone? Because I feel like
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Totally. No,
Yeah.
progesterone is our sleepy light. Oh,
Yes.
everything's okay in the world. It's magic. We love our, yes, no, progesterone facilitates
But
sleep.
would that cause us to go into that deep sleep?
Yes, it does proper progesterone promotion or levels in the body do facilitate getting into deep sleep as well. Yeah, so a lot of women miss out on that. You know, you start hitting that perimenopausal phase and you're suddenly like, man, I feel like I went to bed but I was like awake the whole night. Like I don't know if I actually slept. You know, you were just kind of in this light sleep stage and maybe you started to hit that deep sleep and boom, the brain woke up, right? So a lot of women do miss that, and progesterone helps with many, many women on that one by just taking the micronized progesterone.
Oh, and the vaginal estrogen, if you're doing all your great pelvic floor relaxation and you're still having a little bit of awakenings for the PPs, the vaginal estrogen can further help shore up all of the things and reduce the nighttime PPs and be an independent reducer in your risk for UTIs, which will reduce your all-cause mortality as well. So discuss that with your primary care physician who knows about vaginal estrogen. And if your OB says you are not a candidate, hard no, then talk to Anna, because there's really no one who's a hard no for vaginal estrogen.
There is
no one. And anyone who says that just is not up to date on their literature. So
and even if you have a reaction, we have like compounded ones, like you can find vaginal estrogen that works for you. You know?
Yeah, and it's a really huge deal that every woman knows. And honestly, ladies, everyone who's over like 35 might need this. And I would even argue possibly all postpartum women, but I would talk to Anna about that. We only recommend it to people who have pelvic pain, but the vaginal walls are thin, so it's interesting. So.
And it is the debated world among the gynecologists.
I know, it's so funny.
But you know, there was this huge thing. You know what? We don't have to go into it, but postpartum. people thought if you had estrogen, you could not make milk, but we do know that vaginal estrogen is safe. You can still make milk. We can actually even give contraceptives, which are way higher and not bioidentical, and women still make milk. So
it's super awesome. And this is all new stuff, and we can just, again, from a primary health perspective, especially ladies who want to get back to weightlifting, let's protect their badges, and let's give them as much resiliency as possible.
Exactly.
Oh, look out for mine! Look out for mine! Like, Demon Slayer!
Alright, next question.
But regarding estrogen and how they're taking the black label off, why is it that, like, I've had people ask me that have had either breast cancer or ovarian cancer, or it runs in their family, why they deter taking it?
Yeah, so that also too, study in 2020, which was even bigger than the Women's Health Initiative, came out and showed that actually estradiol reduces breast cancer. If you were to take estradiol by itself, you have a 30% reduction in breast cancer risk. But why did we see an increase in breast cancer risk when women were on HRT? That wasn't smoke and mirrors. There was medroxyprogesterone. Now, when you add on progesterone, micronized progesterone, there was no change in your risk for breast cancer. So something changes there when you add it on with the estradiol. So the great thing is we've taken away, now, I think someone actually sent in a message that said, you know, what are the risks for a perimenopausal woman and taking bioidentical HRT? And
when still on your cycle.
Yeah, still cycle. Well, that's perimenopause, right?
Yeah.
You're still in your cycle. You are not on your cycle until menopause. That is the definition of menopause.
And it's
right?
one day.
It's one day.
It's one day. Menopause is one day, y'all. It's one day. It's one day.
Just kidding.
No, it's true. I just went
okay, terminology.
Yeah.
We're getting terminology.
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
but
I just went to a talk with a lady about menopause and whatever, and I was shocked because I was in surgically induced menopause when I was 37. And I think we have this concept that like menopause is like 10 years, right? But it's like when you stop having a cycle, that was your day that you were in menopause.
So yeah, here's where we use the terminology. Okay, so perimenopause is not one day.
Exactly.
But we'll go into that.
Yeah.
So, and this goes into this goes back into that question that was asked, like, is it safe while I'm cycling? So perimenopause can be either multiple years, it can be up to a decade in a woman's life. It can be just a couple of years. It is where, I love this graph, you guys are gonna visualize it. Okay, in the beginning, this is the start, this is day 1 of our cycle, estradiol is doing this, woo! And then around, right before we ovulate, boom, it starts to go down. And in perimenopause, our estradiol goes like this, and then boom. So the only consistency in perimenopause is that there will be inconsistency. And then our progesterone wants to do this, and then it goes up in our luteal phase, and then it comes down, and so then what it just does is usually tanks, and that's why we're not sleeping well. So now we're like in this weird estrogen dominant phase anyway. So there's stages to this. So I refer in my head as early perimenopause. That's usually when our progesterone is kind of low. Estradiol is probably doing its thing most of the time, pretty normally. Maybe sometimes it's dipping where you're like, every third period I have this radical, crazy, heavy period, and that's fine for like 2 or 3 periods. That's that, but it only happens like every third period. That's early perimenopause. In early perimenopause, my approach, it just depends on severity of symptoms, how long things are going, what a woman's preference is. I usually tend to go herbal, or I look at lifestyle, right? I mean, diet, what is their gut health doing, right? And how much is this affecting their life? Is there other causes, right? Are they incredibly stressed, right? Things like that, things that will affect our hormones. So you can look a lot into lifestyle and early perimenopause. Later menopause, I'm kind of like, okay, we'll look at all those things, but we also want to do the hormones because you will feel so much better and you will actually be able to engage in all those things, right? So it is very, very safe for women in certain stages of perimenopause, which is when you're still cycling, to start hormone replacement therapy. But I would encourage people to kind of look at natural sources first and optimize your health prior to that, and then bring in those because it all works together. The only time it's not safe is if you don't poop, right? There's 3 phases of detoxification. There's phase 1 in the liver, phase 2 in the liver, and then there's pooping. I guess I should say 4, there's peeing too.
Elimination.
Yeah, but when we talk about estrogen, we poop it out. Guess what? We also have an enzyme that's created by a bacteria in our gut. The enzyme's called beta-glucuronidase. It will recycle your estrogen. Don't we love our body? No, it's actually really cool. We're supposed to do it. But some people have high levels of beta-glucuronidase, and therefore they're recycling a lot of estrogen. So they're going to just stay in this estrogen dominant phase because they keep pooping out, right? So I think calcium-glucarate, but or fiber.
You can see that on the I know, beta because I spell it as Scrabble. Wow.
Took me forever. Oh my god, I'm memorizing. Yeah. So anyway, just so that's where if you're not pooping, there is still blood clot risk with estrogen therapy. So there's not blood clot risk with topical estrogen therapy, but if you're going to take oral estrogen therapy, yeah, you would. If you do have blood clotting risk, you really need to talk to a hematologist about that. But migraines, they can be a little tricky. So again, timing is important with migraines. There's times where you can worsen migraines if you give estradiol too early and you're just already in estrogen dominant state and you give estradiol. So again, if you have things like that, you do want to be guided well with a provider. But in general, though, yeah, the risks, there's not a lot. And yeah,
I remember I don't know the statistics, but the amount of even whatever risk it was for increasing cancer was the same as it was less than the risk of increasing cancer from having a glass of alcohol a week or something. And that was also really telling for some of those clients who were a little worried. I don't know. And again, I don't know the details, but that was a pretty mark. So it was looking at lifestyle essentially was the take home for that one.
And that's totally, and that's it too. You can look at a woman's breast cancer risk, right? When you get a mammogram, right, you get a risk calculation. So for certain women, I'll tell them, yes, we can now use certain forms of HRT to reduce this risk, but what are your other risk factors? What does matter? Alcohol is highly linked to breast cancer risk. Then we know all the things not exercising is highly linked, and your family history does matter significantly, but unfortunately more breast cancer occurs in women who have absolutely no family history than people with a family history. So looking at that breast cancer risk is important in making decisions. And people with high breast cancer risk, I work with progesterone strategically, because again, we don't see that reduction, and so I'm more apt to do it if I get anyway. It's a case-by-case basis, so you do want to still be thinking through these things. So it's not I think this idea that one size fits all, here, go jump on hormones is necessarily the answer for everyone, but we've definitely demystified it and showed that we actually see improvement, less risk for the majority of people. Now I should have mentioned, sorry, the contraindication to a cycling woman is if that woman has had breast cancer, still a contraindication. So if you've had breast cancer, you need to talk to your oncologist. They will put someone on topical estradiol, because it does, and the testosterone, anyway. Lots of things going up with hormones. Everybody had it. We're now blanketly saying it is a contraindication.
And don't discount your quality of life and your mental health, right? It can be hugely improved with HRT, depending on how some of those like perimenopausal symptoms are showing up for you, or like brain fog, somebody mentioned ADHD, right?
Yeah.
I have ADHD, and when I got in like surgically induced menopause, I suddenly could not handle it anymore, right? Whereas like all my coping strategies like before that really worked, but then not having estrogen, progesterone, like lower testosterone, like my coping strategies that I had used my whole entire life, like were just not effective anymore. And I think as women, like we really easily discount and we like, we'll just power through and it's okay, and I'm used to being emotional or irritable, and like, you know, I'm used to like, like I can figure it out. But like, don't discount like your quality, like your quality of life and like your mental function and like using HRT, because like it can help us with this stuff too.
More questions?
How do you know, so I take progesterone, but I don't know whether it's the Mexalon or the whatever. How do you know whether you're taking the one that's better than the other?
It should say on there, I mean, it should say micronized progesterone.
It should, it will say it right
On your, look on your bottle and just make sure,
Micro is the good one.
I think micro, that's the good one. You can also just ask the pharmacist or.
Okay. And I have a question for Devin too, just about cortisol, because I feel like it's a big part of it. It's something that I hadn't really, I feel like I've been dealing with a lot. I had a radical hysterectomy 8 years ago, and I've been kind of battling stuff ever since. And so I was just curious about cortisol.
Yeah, did you submit the question about pain and cortisol or no?
No,
Okay. Yeah, interesting. That might have been you. So how I think about it is when we wake up, so cortisol is really attached to our circadian rhythm. And so when we wake up, we have what's called the cortisol awakening response. And so your cortisol should be the highest in the morning. And that's also sort of when our stress response and our blood sugar is the most sensitive. And so we want to do things to support our circadian rhythm and our cortisol, such as eating within 30 minutes to an hour of waking, trying to get some natural sunlight, trying to have, you know, a really solid morning routine because it will support that, your body's stress response. Drinking coffee on an empty stomach and caffeine and whatnot can be kind of exacerbate that cortisol response and blood sugar. And then we want to see it gradually come down, and it should be at its lowest around midnight. And where I see a lot of dysregulation is you can test this basically through saliva and other things, but we can see sort of a natural spike in the morning. It kind of comes down, and then anyone who can associate with feeling like wired but tired around 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 7, something like that, that's where we can see a lot of dysregulation in that cortisol response. And so some of my approaches, I start with blood sugar and I start with gut and digestion and absorption. Some tools, I think, one, you want to think about stress and that's mental health, but also how your lifestyle is creating stress. And so a way to make your body feel safe is to create rhythm and routine. And so eating first thing in the morning, waking up around a similar time, and then eating in consistent intervals throughout the day. So if we have really unpredictable eating patterns and sleep patterns, the body is guessing, when am I going to get fed, when am I going to get rest, when am I going to, and it's on high alert always, and can really dysregulate cortisol. So that, I would say, is a key thing that I talk about, is just setting phone alarms if you have a chaotic schedule, to think about, all right, if I'm having breakfast at 7, every 3 to 4 hours, I need to plan out my day like you would almost, you know, a toddler for snacking if you're going to go out for the day, right?
There are foods that are better than others for cortisol.
Ooh, I would say not necessarily specific foods, but I think a balance of macronutrients. So carbohydrates, proteins, fats, really making sure those carbohydrates are mostly fiber based, because that's going to slow that blood sugar response. So again, another stressor is if you eat simple carbohydrates or sugars, your blood sugar is going to spike and then it's going to crash. And you can be on that trajectory for the rest of the day, and it resets when you sleep, when your circadian rhythm resets. So I would say eating consistently and eating protein, fat, fiber throughout your day is going to be the best like dietary support. I think a lot of people can feel like they have cortisol, like elevated cortisol. We can start to notice changes in our kind of where we're storing fat and water retention and stuff in our like middle section. And when we leave that unnoticed and kind of perpetuate this stress response, it can end up in low cortisol, really flatline sex hormones and things like that. So we can be in this really depleted kind of chronic burnout state. I don't see connections to pain as much. I don't know again if that was your question, but there was a question associating, I have hip and back pain and I'm curious about and I'm curious about my cortisol, and I don't see as much connection with physical pain other than just, other than stress and inflammation, and that can show up anywhere in the body. So even if you come to me with chronic achy joints, I'm going to be looking at gut infections and pathogens that are driving inflammation in your body. So,
But a tight pelvic floor and an underactive core and low estrogen is correlated with pain levels, elevated pain levels. So that would be something. And the estrogen level is an independent predictor of pain in any female over 35 years old. And so that's important, especially if you have had a hysterectomy. If the ovaries
and if it was traumatic, because trauma is also associated with higher levels of cortisol. Like,
nobody is. No, it's absolutely garbage.
So, but the level of estradiol, I know you can, you should get your blood checked to see if you're taking the proper amount or if you produce more, like if I'm low estrogen.
The Menopause Society does not recommend checking levels. It's again a debatable thing. I base it on patients and like what their experience is with it. Like usually, like again, we'll go back at like perimenopause. I generally like to look because I like to look at what we're doing with our estrogen, like what are our estrogen metabolites. So again, that can help gauge risk of like if you are gonna make, when you're in our first phase of liver detoxification, hydroxylation will make we'll make 3 different 2,4,16-hydroxyestrone, which are the metabolites of estrogen, so how we're breaking it down in phase 1 detoxification. If you're high in 4-hydroxyprogesterone, you are at high risk to develop cancer. Right, that is a very nasty metabolite. We need a really strong phase 2, which is what then takes that nasty metabolite that's trying to become hydrophilic. It wants to love water so it can come out in our poop and pee. When it gets stuck in that middle phase and it's that nasty metabolite, that is directly linked to cancer. So if I see those high ones, I'm going to detox a woman first before even starting on estrogen. Not all women want to do that. It's also why I'm moving up for medicine. Just come see me if you want to do it. Come see me. Do it now. But I was in Western. People were like, you never made me do that. I was like, I was in this crazy 16, 18 patients a day. I might not have time, and I can't. Those are really complex labs to look over, so they do take some time. You're looking at the clinical picture and everything. But nonetheless, that's a great way to look at estrogen. Now, postmenopausally, if women do have complicated histories, say they have like fibroadenomas or they have big fibroids or they start to bleed, those would be times where you could look at levels too. But that test I was talking about also checks cortisol because it's such a direct link. This is why, I'm not going to say I know exactly why, but I've dealt with a lot of women with hysterectomies, right? They come see me because they're just like, I think I'm going crazy. I was 5 before I had the hysterectomy. And the OBGYN's going to be like, it's your hormones. We just need here, take this pill. And sure, yes, some of it is a hormone. Oh my gosh, I've checked cortisol levels on women and they are out the wazoo.
I wish I had that.
Yeah.
It's been 8 years.
Well, but the great thing is, now's time, right? Now you can say, well, what can I do for my body? There's always hope and time. At any stage we deal with these things. We might just have dealt with things for longer than we really wanted to deal with them. but.
At least we can deal with them now.
Yeah.
It's not 40 years ago.
And now we
That's-
like those lifestyle factors and dietary, yeah.
And not to get super woo-woo, but right, like the ones of us that have had hysterectomies, we lost a whole part of our body.
Yeah.
And psychologically, like, I'm not gonna assume what your experience was like, but someone is cutting into your body, you are asleep, you're not active, it's your sex organ, you are usually not well shepherded through the process, and then you wake up and you are lacking an organ. And so like, let's also don't discount the psychological trauma of that is not attended to. And I would say in any surgery, whether it's a hysterectomy or a knee replacement or whatever, like there's just not a lot of trauma-informed care that surgeons are using.
Yeah.
Anna, when you said that you would detox a patient, like with the estrogen pathways, what does that mean?
So usually facilitate, one, like what's gut health, and then usually I'll use things like DIM and NAC, so I use supplements that we know DIM helps with phase 1, but I don't want anyone just to take DIM, by the way, because, right, you ramp up phase 1, boom, now you make even more of those particles, right? So you can ramp up and support phase 1, but you definitely need like NAC and sulforaphane and everything that ramps up phase 2 as well. Gut health is huge in that. And then nutrients.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, being able to methylate. Again, another one of those phase 2 reactions. So
Call her, schedule with her. She's amazing.
Supporting your liver.
She saved my life. Like, oh my gosh, she saved my uterus and saved my life.
She definitely saved also my. I told her, I was like, oh my God, I'm losing weight while saved my mental health.
You're all a happy
Collaboration
family.
with the gut, because she reinforced my gut stuff. So, okay, wonderful.
Well, let's give it up for these ladies.
So proud of you. So proud of you. You're so cool.
They'll be around for the next couple minutes. Feel free to come over, ask your questions. Otherwise,
Oh my God, it's amazing. Oh, thank you. Well, and again, I've been so